So with your attention on the ankle joint, in your own words, in your mind, in silence, maybe you would like to say, thank you so much. Thank you so much, ankle, for bringing me from one point to another without fear. Even when you are not well, you are injured, you are in pain, sometimes I ignore you because I have to rush to somewhere else. I have things to do. But you never failed me. So thank you so much. So you can use your own words. If my words doesn't mean any sense to you, override mine, use your own voice to show appreciation and thank you to every part of your body. Now moving up, we're going to bring attention to your knees, the kneecap and the back of the knee. So our kneecap is also part of the joint where we need to move from one point to another. We climb up the stairs, we climb down the stairs, we run, we rushed. The knees are always there for us. Sometimes it gives pain, cracking, aching. We continue to use our knee. And without the knee, we can't move to any place. So knee, thank you so much for being there for me. Moving up is where your pelvis is. The pelvis is actually the supporting component of your upper and lower body. Without the pelvis, we can't sit down, we can't walk, we can't stand. We may be able to lie down, but pelvis is so important. For some of us who have injured our pelvis before, we know how important is pelvis to us. So this pelvis is really the life support of the whole human structure. Thank you so much, pelvis, for being my support all the time. Bring attention to your both legs, the whole legs, the lower part of your body that support your movement, moving from one point to the other. Able to jump, run, walk, squat, swim. Our legs. Always so tired, we always don't have time for our legs. Thank you so much. Moving up from the pelvis is our spinal cord. Now, the spinal cord is actually the support of life force. People with spinal injury will know how tough the life force is. It strengthens our body. It lets the organs, internal organs, not to be compressed. Thank you so much, spinal. And our structure here in the sense of all the bones and skeleton. Our body is so important because with that structure, it provides the skeleton for us to do what we need to do every day. Thank you so much. Now, moving up, we're going to bring the attention to where our ears are. Our ears are always open, different from our mouth, different from our eyes. Our ears are always there, taking in information, things that we like, things that we don't like. Our ears are so big-hearted. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate you sometimes listening to all the unkind words, but you're always there for me. Thank you, ears. Now we're going to go to our eyes. Eyes is the windows of our soul. We use our eyes to engage and interact with the outside world like the other four senses. As we grow older, our eyes is giving way, you know, those inconvenience. So we need to appreciate our eyes. Every day we look on the screen, the computer, the handphone, we read, we watch, we interact. Our eyes only get to rest when we were asleep, or maybe not. Our eyes are always so tired. Can we give appreciation to your eyes in your own words? Now we go into the largest organ, which is the skin. Our skin protects us, the whole body. Every day our skin is exposed to the external stimulus, the weather, the temperature, the water, the oil, whatever, the pollution is always there. It's always there for us. And do we take care of our skin when we bathe, or we're just rushing? And we forgot to take care of the largest organ of our human body. Thank you so much, skin, for always be there to protect me from this sun, from the cold. Thank you. Now we're going to bring the attention to where our nose are. That's where the breathing takes place, the beginning point. Breathing in and breathing out. We're taking the oxygen for us to survive. And for those of us, when we have our nose blocked, you know how terrible it is, even though we can breathe through our nose. For people with sinus. And I appreciate my nose to be always there to keep me alive. Now we're going to go inside our body right now. From the nose, we go through the lungs. Lungs takes in oxygen. Lungs work very hard to keep us alive. Without oxygen, our all internal organ may fail. Our brain will stop working. And our lung take in a lot of pollution from the environment, from the air. If we smoke, for us, those who smoke, we take in a lot of all this contaminations and pollution, and there's no judgment here. Can you take a look at your lungs? How tired your lung is? Even when we are sleeping, the lungs still continue to work to make sure we are alive so that we can wake up the next morning. Thank you, lungs. Thank you. Now let's go to the heart. Heart pumps blood. It's not just about sustaining our life through the circulation of blood. When we are highly stressed, our heart takes in that pressure without realizing. We take in so much pressure and all the way go to the heart. The heart overwork when we're going through long hours, stressful, whether it's at work or at home. It's like our punch box. We punch it. We never take care of it. We take care of other people. We never take care of our heart. When our hearts are broken, that's the organ that feels most. It's not just about blood. So are we overly burden our heart right now? The heart works also when we're sleeping. Can you show your appreciation now to your heart in your own words? Maybe you would like to put your hand onto the heart to give your heart a gentle touch and show your appreciation. From the heart, we go to the kidney. The kidney filter the blood. Filter the blood so that we get good blood, healthy blood. Still working all the time. These are all our major organs. Can you see how hardworking your organs are? Your body gets to rest, not your organs. Thank you. Thank you, kidney. Now, kidney and liver are best friends because liver helps to detox the blood. If not, our body full of toxicity, so tired. The amount of things that we put inside our body, our liver help us to detox, to work on the toxin. Never ending, never stopping. When we drink, when we do not have enough sleep, when we stay up late at night, the liver is the one who's working OT for you, overtime for you. Not just you. You don't complain. Your liver doesn't complain. Thank you so much, liver. Thank you. I love you, liver. Let's go to your stomach. Oh, that's the best place where we put our food, our craving. But sometimes when we overeat and overdrink, our stomachs are full of all these things. We overstretch our stomach. Our stomach wall is stretchable, but we overstretch it. We never take care of our stomach. We just take care of our taste bud. We just love to put in food that we love. There's nothing wrong with that. But just bring your attention to your stomach right now and checking your stomach. Is your stomach happy? Or your stomach is overstretched, crying for help? Thank you, stomach. Without you, I can't enjoy life. I can't enjoy food. Thank you. Now, we bring our attention to our CEO, which is the brain. The brain is the one who controls everything. Our memory, our emotions, our thoughts. But yet, every day, we keep our brain busy by all the preoccupations, negative thoughts, busyness. And the brain never fails us. The brain gets to overwork. So mindfulness is a very good tool for us to allow our brain to really calm down, to work on the central nervous system so that our whole system, internal system, is at a very regulated and calm state so that we can serve other people better when we're at this state. Thank you so much, brain. Thank you. I'm going to give you 1 minute just to go through your internal body and show appreciation and tell the organs how much you love and appreciate them. Now bring your attention back to your whole body sitting down here. How do you know you are sitting? You can feel your sit bone, the feet on the floor, bum on the chair. You can feel your breath. So coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their growth. John Whitmore. And I wished every life coach here and those who are supporting all the life coaching the journey, really having this important self-care for yourself so that you can benefit and support more people along the way. So if your eyes are still closed, you may take 1 or 2 or 3 deep breaths, 1 or 2 or 3 deep breaths, and slowly open up your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. That was really beautiful. So we still have 5 minutes more before we get to the start of this session. So if you are already in the waiting room, you may just go grab a glass of water, some coffee, whatever that's going to make you comfortable. And we'll start in exactly 4 minutes time, 5 minutes time. Looking forward to starting the session when everyone has entered the room, just giving a couple of minutes for those who are in the waiting room to come in. So perhaps for those of you who came in a little bit later, after we started, I'm just going to show you a slide where we have some good news for you today in celebration of Vesak Day. We're inviting you to invite a coach friend to log on and join us for this session free. So you can take the link, the Zoom link, from the chat and post it or text it through WhatsApp or other text modes to your friends, so you can invite them for this session, and it's all for free. Okay, so a little gift from us to you just for today. So please go ahead and take a minute or two to put the Zoom link into your chat and invite at least 1 or 2 people that you know who may benefit from this session, which is about what companies want in coaches. So we have 2 minutes more to start. Grab your glass of water or coffee. We're going to begin soon. Okay, it's 1:30 now and we shall begin today's session. Welcome everyone to ICF Singapore 2020. This is day 4 and the second session in day 4. My name is Suman Balani and I'm your host for this session. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm really excited about this session because it is answering a very fundamental question that each of us as coaches need to know with crystal clarity, especially in these times. And the question, of course, is what companies need from our coaches? And to answer this question, we have invited a panel of distinguished speakers. I'm going to quickly mention their names. We have Jim Livingstone, who is the founder of Northpoint, and he is going to be our panel moderator. We have Alvin Goh, who is the executive director of the Singapore Human Resources Institute. This is where all the HR professionals are members of, and they are probably the decision makers. So it's great to have Alvin here to share his perspective. We also have DN Prasad, who is with GovTech now and has also his own practice. He's a PCC with ICL. Leonard Lee, Hilton Hotels Asia-Pacific. Simon Wood, 66 Steps Marketng. I will be talking about each one of them a little bit more in detail, but let me just finish a little bit on the administrative parts of it. So we've started the session, we will end at about 3 o'clock. In the meantime, just to remind all of you to mute your mics so that, you know, we have a smooth session. And because this is a panel, you can post your questions in the chat. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat. You can type your questions there, and we will be consolidating the questions and sharing them with Jim as we go along. So I noticed yesterday everybody was really having fun and chatting with each other in the chat, which is really nice. But because this is a panel discussion, it'll be nice if you can only put in questions that are relevant to the question that we're trying to answer, right? The topic of today's panel discussion. And another very important thing is after the webinar, we are going to give you a link to get your CCEUs and to do a feedback survey. So for those of you who are coaches and want to earn CCEUs, you need to stay from the start of the webinar till the very end. And so you need to be, you know, present in the audience for the full webinar in order to get your CCEUs, right? We will not be issuing any partial CCEUs, and instructions to apply for the CCEUs will be given at the end of the webinar, so please stay till the very end. We're also encouraging you to apply for the CCEU within 24 hours, and the certificates will be sent to you in June. Okay, so I hope this is all clear. Let's move on. So before we get to the panel members and tell you a little bit more about them, I'd like to thank our platinum sponsor, Imagenetics. You know, they have very kindly agreed to give us a very generous gift package worth $350, consisting of Imagenetics profile and access to online resources, as well as special webinar on enhancing your coaching experience. Just in case you don't know what they do, Imagenetics helps people and organizations to improve communication, collaboration, and culture, resulting in positive and productive workplaces. So thank you for that, Imagenetics. We are really grateful for your generosity. A special word of thanks to our silver sponsors. First, we have the Coach Partnership, previously used to be known as Newfield. They've brought the Newfield suite of coach training programs to Asia since 2010. Newfield has been the world's leading ontological methodology since 1991, with over 65,000 graduates worldwide. And it's recognized as a gold standard within the ICF network of coach certification programs. Thank you, Coach Partnership, for being one of our silver sponsors. We also have Starting Point, the authorized provider of everything DIS certification and solutions. 5 behaviors of a cohesive team and building trust solutions. They specialize in customized workshops and coaching for leadership and organizational improvement and transformation. And last but not least, the coaching app. Go check out the app at www.thecoachingapp.com. The coaching app puts a C-suite executive coach in your pocket. All the knowledge, guidance, and tools you need to put yourself at the center of your universe and make your personal development a reality. So thank you all the silver sponsors. We're really grateful for your support in spite of these times. Thank you for being here with us. And so now we're ready to start the panel. I'm so excited. First of all, I'm going to introduce Jim Livingstone. He's our panel moderator. Jim is the founder and chief learning officer for Northpoint, an organization that specializes in the assessment and development of leaders. He works with leaders at all levels, but has been particularly focused on helping individual contributors make the challenging transition into a leadership role. Jim has a wealth of experience from working with organizations as a learning and development partner, and some of them include AT&T, Bata, Cisco, Evonik, Fairfax Media, and the list goes on, right? Thank you. So Jim, really happy to have you here. What a pleasure to have you. I'm going to continue to introduce the rest of the panel members very quickly. Alvin Goh, as we have said, Alvin is the ED of SHRI. He's an accomplished people-centric senior leader with more than 15 years of international experience with significant career progression in a business-aligned HR leadership role and with key strategic and decision-making responsibilities. He has lived and worked in China, France, and Vietnam, and he's great at international business outlooks coupled with a passion for human capital management and transformation. Alvin has worked all around the world. So that's Alvin. Welcome, Alvin. So happy to see you. Our third member in the panel is Mr. D.N. Prasad. He's an executive coach at PCC. Also a HR leader, mentor, advisor, and a talent and culture strategist with expertise in leading scale transformations, building and scaling organizations and functions, both in-country, regional, and global, and shaping and nurturing cultures and careers. He was recently conferred as the Master Professional by the Institute of Human Resource Professionals, IHRP Singapore. DNP, as he is known in the professional circles, is currently Senior Director of Strategy, People and Organization with the Government Technology Agency, also called GovTech, right? Prior to that, he founded Noetic, an executive coach and talent advisory practice, working with leaders and organizations globally. In his last corporate stint, he served as director and head of Google People Services for Asia-Pacific and as a leadership coach at Google Inc. So welcome, DNP. We are privileged to have you. Let me go on to Leonard. Leonard, so nice to see you after so long. Leonard is the regional head of leadership development and talent for Asia-Pacific for global hospitality chain Hilton. Heading a team that spans Asia, he's heavily involved in the designing developmental centers for high potential staff, running senior leadership programs and implementing talent initiatives like succession planning and talent reviews. Prior to that, he held human resource development roles in Barclays, Reuters, Asia Training Center, and Lafarge Asia Pacific. He's a board-certified coach from the Center of Credentialing and Education in the USA. With the blessings of his current organization, he's also an accredited associate coach with the Center for Creative Leadership. And last on our list, as you can see, we have really distinguished speakers there who are going to bring a wealth of experience. And lastly, Simon. Simon has a slightly different background. He's into marketing, and basically he will be the one to share the perspective of how we can put our coaches out there in the market. Simon Wood enables companies to tell their stories and connect with customers. With over 25 years of marketing and branding experience from both the multinational and entrepreneurial worlds, Simon is ideally placed to help build a client base of loyal customers. Simon has marketed products to over 3 million customers, generated over 50 million in revenue, and built a startup company worth $20 million in less than 2 years. He specializes in marketing to high-value customers, having dedicated much of his career marketing to successful high-net-worth individuals. Originally from the UK, he has spent about 18 years in Singapore and has worked with clients throughout Asia as well as the rest of the world. So welcome. We're really happy to have all of you. And I'm going to hand over to Jim so he can open the panel and start the discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Suman, and welcome everybody. I hope you're enjoying ICW 2020. I'd like to sort of kick things off with an apology. I'm Australian, and sometimes as an Australian we talk with this funny sort of English accent. So if at any stage I don't make sense, just tell me to speak English and I'll slow down and speak a bit clearer for everyone. What I'd like to do to start with, can I ask everyone in the chat box just to sort of paste in there where you're from, Singapore, Australia, wherever. Can I just get you to post in there very quickly right now? Okay, Canada, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Australia, Sydney, Perth, yay. Palau Ubin, Vietnam, wow, Brizzy, New Zealand, the fashion shops people, UAE, oh, fantastic. So we've got people from everywhere. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, great. So we have a fantastic sort of conversation lined up for you today in what organizations want from coaches. What I'd like to do to kick things off is I'd like to start with 2 polls. Suman, can you help me launch the first poll? The first poll we have is I'd like to know who in this room is an active coach. And by an active coach, I mean you're actively involved in having regular coaching styled conversations, either with your reports at work or as an external coach to organizations or as an internal coaching bench. Lynn, can you please explain how they do this, please? Oh, they've got it already.
Yeah, so you just go to the URL that you see on your screen, www.menti.com, and they'll ask you to key the code in. So you can just do that. It's really easy, 569736, and you would be able to input right away.
Okay, so so everyone's got that. Go to menti.com, enter the code 569736. Okay. Just give it a couple more minutes. We just want to see what sort of numbers we get. Okay, so we're looking at it roughly based on the numbers right now. How many people have got at the moment? 246. Okay. Are these numbers right, Lynn, at the moment?
What do you mean right?
Okay, so the code is 569736. Anupama asked for the code. Okay, so roughly we've got, of this room, we're looking at around about sort of 85 to 90% of the people here are actively involved in their role as a coach. I'd like to launch another sort of poll right now to find out what sort of coach best describes you. So we've got 6 choices: an internal coach, an executive coach, a performance coach, a life coach, other type of coach, or NA if not appropriate, not applicable. The code for this poll is 569736. Can you all do that quickly, please? Okay. So we're seeing about 45% are executive coaches, around about sort of 25, 26% are life coaches, 5 or 6% are performance coaches. We've got some internal coaches there at about 10%, and there's sort of almost 30% that are in the others category or the not applicable. Oh, fantastic. All right, great stuff. So let us start. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Lynn. So I'm going to start with a question to the panel. We want this to be as engaging and as interactive as possible. So I invite everyone who's here, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please stick it in the chat box. Don't be shy, and we will ask the questions to the panel as and when the time arises. Let us begin. Can I start with the first question? I'd like to sort of direct this first question to, let me first start this first question directed at Prasad. You there, Prasad?
Yes, Jim.
Yes, okay. So the first question. So given all the change that's going on around us, I mean, we've had VUCA for quite some time, and now all of a sudden COVID-19 pandemic sort of turned the world upside down. Organizations are having to sort of rethink the way they do things and rethink who they are. What sort of changes are you seeing as a result of all of this?
Yeah, Jim, that's a really good question to start the season with, if I may say so. There are enough practices that we're seeing across organizations, but if I do not get into practices, because that can take the next hour just talking about practices, if I need to really summarize what we are seeing, it's about what was called the future of work, which includes people, places, processes, and practices, and all of this are currently being reconsidered by organizations. Now, there are more questions than answers, and the burning platform that COVID has created has driven a more agile and definitely a more collaborative way of working. From an organizational standpoint, I think a lot of organizations are also considering practices or have implemented practices which can be considered bold by their standards. Now, contextualization is key here, so practices are specific to an organization, to a geography. But for me, the key takeaways that I would encourage everyone in the organization to look at are: 1, are we caring enough for people? 2, are we focusing appropriately on all the changes that's required? 3, are we prioritizing ruthlessly? And 4, most important, are we reacting to the situation, or are we considering a thorough, considered response? So that's how I would like to summarize what we're seeing around us.
Okay, brilliant. And Leonard, what's your take on this?
Funny that you should ask, because I'm actually on different committees in my company on what thought of the idea of reintegrating people back in the organization after the lockdowns that's happening across the world. And there are different levels, right? There's of course all the safety issues that won't necessarily go into things like how do you actually interact in the open spaces. And companies have actually created big social spaces primarily to build culture, right? But now these spaces have become a bit of a liability, if you wish, right? So the other piece that that we are looking at is how to then create culture, not so much create, but reinvigorate the culture, because people are now apart, and how do we then, when they come back, how do we keep that culture, which is very strong in my organization, and I'm sure very strong in other people's organizations. So the whole topic around culture and engagement has become very, very important in the discussions that we're having now, so that when people come back, they will be able to continue where they left off.
Okay, so we've got, on one hand, we've got Prasad saying that there's organizations thinking about the future of work, agile, collaborative, introducing lots of practices into them, and you're seeing a lot of efforts going into creating these social spaces, sort of re-inviting people back into the organization, re-establishing what those cultures are, and building those cultures from there. Is that almost like a business 2.0?
Yes, it is. It's actually quite interesting because traditionally we hold town halls, we hold all these big events in our social spaces, right? But when you look at the future of work now that Prasad mentioned, you got to rethink now, how do we do these things? Because these things don't matter anymore. They are in fact liabilities, right? We can't use those spaces anymore. So how then do we continue engaging and whilst people are separated and they could be working from home or wherever else. So the idea of engagement has become such a primary important factor for us.
Engagement. Okay, brilliant. And Alvin, what are you seeing at this point in time?
I think I'm very aligned to what both Leonard and Prasad has mentioned. I think COVID-19 has definitely transformed the way how we should be looking at carrying out work in the future itself. Organizations in the past has spent millions of dollars in terms of social cohesion in the workplace to build a culture of belonging. But right now, as what Leonard has clearly pointed out, the social space right now has become a liability on that sort. So organizations are then forced to rethink, how then should I continue to build that social cohesion among in the organization itself to propel and enhance performance, given the need of that has come up from COVID-19, the technologies that we are also been using not only here in Singapore but globally. Everybody's on Zoom, everybody's on Teams, and so forth, and as a means of still maintaining some form of engagement itself. So I think it's very exciting to look at on the HR tech world itself, how things are going to unfold to enable organizations to use all these tools at our hands to continue with that social cohesion and engagement with our people itself. So I think it's really exciting times for HR as a function itself. Not looking at the traditional work that we do, but going beyond the traditional work that we do to really engage our staff on that front, right? Using the tools in terms of technology.
And great point, that question that Anna's raised. In terms of distinguishing the difference between physical space and social space, what do you see as the difference between the two, Prasad?
Sorry, Jim, can you...
So Anna's asked a question, which is, maybe we should distinguish between physical space and social space. What's your thought on that? Because we're talking a lot about social space right now.
I think it calls for a very, very interesting perspective. Oftentimes there was a little bit of a blurring of lines between the physical and the social space, also because of the way the social interactions happen, despite the growth of technology and in the way we have shifted our practices into a different kind of a social, and we know what we're talking about here. I think COVID again has driven a need for us to be very mindful of how the physical and the social spaces need to be integrated to a limited extent, but also need to be separated. So like Leonard was just talking about, social engagement cannot happen in a physical space only anymore. So that's definitely been put up, that's come up as a significant consideration for the leaders and for the organizations.
And Leonard, can I throw this question back to you? I mean, how are you seeing organizations separate and distinguish between that physical and social space?
Yeah, so this is the tricky bit, right? Because we created our offices, we've got a whole floor dedicated to physical space because we firmly believe, being hospitality, that people need to socialize, right? So we've created So now we look at the spaces now, we say, oh my goodness, that space is going to go to waste, right? And how, well, in a way it's going to go to waste, at least for the foreseeable future. So what we're going to do about the space aside, we're going to look at how we're going to engage people when they return. So for example, we're looking at some things like care kits when they come back, simple things like that. How they're going to talk about engaging them through a lot of what we call webinars and stuff that are already happening right now, so that they're not, even though we're working remotely, they're not feeling a bit out of place. And a lot of things that we're doing, things like interest groups meetings, virtual coffee sessions with senior leaders and things like that. So there are a lot of the ideas. Just it's all about building a culture through things that we would have done normally in a physical space, like having a lunch and learn, but now we're putting it all in a virtual space.
And Prasad, what are some of the things that you're seeing happening at the moment?
It's a little too early to comment on that, Jim, primarily for the reason that there are a lot of companies which are thinking about coming back, and what does it really mean for it. There are a lot of conversations, but again, preemptive and presumptive at this stage to be very definitive of what those would look like. Amongst the considerations would be, how are physical spaces in the office going to be used for future? Is it going to be for work, or is it going to be for the social interaction and the collaboration? So do we have to be at work every single day, or do we come to office for the collaboration and for the social interactions that is going to be important, where we need to meet in person? So there are a lot of questions, and I'll go back to what I mentioned at the start. There are more questions than answers. And I was speaking to a fellow coach recently, last week, and he's also a high performance coach who's worked with Olympians, and he's a mindfulness coach. He made a very interesting point that we are often tuned to answering the questions that he asks if we are questioning the answers that we have. I think it struck with me. There will be a need for us to start on questioning the answers that typically would form practices in the workplace at this point in time. So I would say a lot of discussions, no finite answers. We need to look at what practices we would incorporate, looking at the contextual nature of the organizations and of the industry and maybe even the region.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions coming in about work from home. I mean, how is this going to change work from home moving forward with organizations? Alvin, what are your thoughts on this?
Interesting enough, about a month ago, SHRI together with IHRP and Engage Rocket, we launched a national survey, right? And we poll the companies, employers, and both employees, and we had a resounding almost 70% of participants indicated that they would like to continue to work from home itself, and this gives rise to CHROs and organizations to really rethink how best then to accommodate policies of working from home, to have a blended perspective, or rather, part split teams, or whatever you want to call it, to enable our employees to continue to work from home, but yet being engaged in the organization, and to still being able to monitor performance on that front. So I really feel that going forward itself, there will be organizations taking this forward to enable their employees to continue to work from home. Because honestly, my personal view is that even after the circuit breaker itself, I think safe distancing is still going to be called for. And if we think about us as employers and putting our employees at the heart of every organization, and caring from them just beyond the business results, in terms of from the health and safety perspective, in terms of engaging the heart of our employees itself, I think then the first aspect of employee safety calls to mind. And we need to then think about, can I then still enable my employees to continue to work from home at the front, all right? And telecommuting policies and work from home policies needs to then be developed to ensure that, yes, we are allowing employees to work from home, but yet we are still keeping our eyeballs and on the performance results that are still needed to ensure organizational survival and this current uncertain times itself.
Okay, so there's a lot of so based on what we're hearing so far, there's a lot of emphasis being put into thinking about people moving forward, thinking about people's role within the organization moving forward. How do we keep people happy and engage with people and build those social circles, whilst at the same time sort of being able to manage the performance in sort of a proactive way? Does that about sum up what you just said then, Alvin?
That's right.
And if you think about this, what do you think the coaching community can learn from what we're going through right now? What are some of the big lessons for the coaching community right now?
I
Prasad,
think
Alvin, just start with Alvin. Sorry.
Go ahead, Alvin. Yeah.
So I think from a coaching perspective, so I think organization leaders right now will be at a loss, but not really at a loss, but will be contemplating various scenarios on what do I do? The data shows that our employees would like to work from home, and given the safe distancing policies that will still be most likely be continued after circuit breaker and so forth. What then do we do, right, to safeguard our employees? So I think from a coaching perspective right now is to really try to help organizations and its leaders to really bring about an ability to bring out their best thinking right now, and to plan forward what will be the best course of action to take under the current situation. As I allude to what Prasad said earlier on, there's not going to be any firm resolutions or solutions on, okay, this is the right way to go about doing this, and so forth and so forth. But I think the coaches, the duty and responsibility here is to bring out the best in terms of the leaders thinking what is the best way and the best approach in this current pandemic situation. And I don't expect the coaches themselves to be able to come up with a firm answer at that point of time, but rather to bring out the best in the leaders' thinking.
So, Leonard, your thoughts on this?
I think I would like to approach this, how can coaches benefit actually from the COVID crisis, right? I think there's an opportunity, personally. If you look at in the past, right, in all the organizations that I've been working in, coaching was confined primarily to the top tiers, right? The top tiers of organization, because of the cost and everything else. But I think because a lot of leaders wouldn't have gone through this kind of crisis, the change management that it entails, the disruption that it entails, it does provide coaches with a chance to come in and help and support these leaders who have not had that kind of experience. So that's the first point. The second point I'd like to say is cost. Now, I'm going to be very honest that when we look at coaches, right, and that's the cost always comes up, and that's a fact, right? And in post-COVID times, I think the idea of costing for coaches becomes a bit more tricky, a bit more sensitive, especially if you're looking at coaching, not so much the C-suite, but the ones maybe slightly below, right? And the very third point is the concept of virtual coaching, because we can't meet anymore. What we've started doing in my organization is to look at virtual coaching. Now, I know a lot of us don't like virtual coaching. To be honest, for even my organization, it was a hard sell. But we started off we got hooked up with a vendor, actually a global vendor, to do virtual coaching, to provide virtual coaching at a fraction of the price. And I think that enables the organization to leverage off the expertise of coaches based on language, based on the culture and distance. So I think that's what I see that will happen in the post-COVID world, and would help our coaches.
Prasad, what are you seeing in terms of the coach's role going forward within organizations?
Jim, I'll be preaching to the choir here. We saw 85% of the participants are coaches, and internal, external, what have you. So fundamentally, the way we look at it is coaching is a conversation, coaching is a relationship. I'll take it back to that starting point. Now it's a mindset, and it goes both ways for coaches and coachees. Now, where there can be labels, going back to one of the surveys that you launched, we could be life coaches, executive coaches, internal coaches. Eventually, it all leads to development, and it's a journey. I think when it comes to journey, organizations and individuals and leaders as well, the journey that we're all going through is in uncharted territories right now. So the biggest focus would be on shifting behaviors. be it individuals, be it teams, be it leaders, be it organizations. There will be a sense of connection and a safe space that we were talking about earlier as well, that the coaches need to get. And therefore, the role of a coach in partnering with any of this, it could be a leader, it could be an individual, it could be teams, to help them go through this journey, to help them solve for what's uncertain, and to primarily, I'm an ontological coach, primarily to help people see the same problem or the situation with a different lens than we have before. I think that's really where I see a huge role for coaches. It could be external or internal play in this time.
Okay, Alvin, your thoughts on this?
My view is in terms of be it virtual coaching or be it face-to-face coaching, at the end of the day, from a business perspective, as I said earlier on, it's really to help the coachee to bring out the best thinking itself, and being not afraid really to share your failures as well as a coach with the participants. I think that's a very strong key point, because prior to my role in SHRI, being the CHR for a regional bank, we do assess coaches for a lot of our executive leaders in terms of executive coaching. And I particularly came across a lot of coaches when we interviewed them, and they talk about their resume, right? In terms of number of hours, their professional certification. But what really impacts me the most is that a coach must also be willing to share what were the weaknesses, the failures that they themselves had in the past, right? Because at the end of the day, as I said, the fundamentals of organizations to actually trying to engage a coach for any of our high potentials is to help bring out the best of their thinking, and also to navigate, the minefields in the business world itself for any leader itself. So having been done that, and failed to do that as well from a coach perspective, I strongly believe it will also help the coachee navigate, the business minefield, I would say.
Brilliant. So we're hearing a lot of different things, and I'm looking at the chat box, and there's lots and lots of comments about what exactly do people want from coaches. If you were able to summarize it in one sentence, Prasad, or two sentences, what do you think organizations are looking for right now in coaches?
I think there'll be three things that we'll be looking at. I'll start with the fundamental. It's really, it goes back to the chemistry that a coach would have with a coachee. And I would actually say with also the culture of the organization. The second one is the style of coaching. And I'm seeing some of the comments on the chat as well. They're talking about how coaches should be more versatile, and I cannot agree more with that statement. It's the style of coaching and the ability to be versatile and hybrid that will come in. So it cannot necessarily only be executive coaching or team coaching or life coaching. But I'm also not referring to a coach being a one-size-fits-all and somebody who can come and say, I can do everything. That's a huge flag for me. There has to be specialist areas, but the versatility is important. The third one I would look at is, I think it kind of goes back to the point Leonard was making. It's the depth that the coach can get, whether it could be from an industry point of view, a geographic and cultural point of view, the variety of experience that coaches had. So I'd be looking at some of those as very critical when we're looking at coaches for the leaders in the organization.
Thank you very much. Simon, finally, could you sort of weigh in on this one? Sorry to keep you waiting.
No problem at all. I think having been in large multinational companies, I think it's a highly stressful environment to begin with. And then when you put everything that is going on in the world at the moment, it becomes infinitely more stressful. I think that coaches will have a role to actually help manage that stress and manage the decision making that takes place in those organizations. And I think it's very important that the role that coaches have, you articulate that as best as possible, and articulate to the organizations and your clients what benefits you can give to them in this time of crisis. The stress levels are through the roof, which makes decision making that much more difficult. And I do think that the role of coaches coming into those organizations and helping key decision makers to make the right decisions in the short term, which will have the impact for the long term, is very, very important. And also the role of coaching enables that trickle down to the teams that the senior leaders are managing, and that's very important to mitigate the anxiety that organizations are inevitably going through at the moment.
So everyone seems to be coming back with the same feedback, which is the coach's role obviously is to support people through these trying times, one, to play as almost to help leaders sort of transition and think their way through all the challenges they're facing moving forward. What I'd like to know is, given the changes that are going on around us, what role do you think coaching should play in L&D moving forward? Alvin.
I mean, I always view the fact that coaching should be divorced from L&D, my view. All right. You know, L&D, if you really look at the two areas itself, from an L&D perspective, it's either from a technical or soft skills perspective, whereby we engage the R&D development and everything. But for me, coaching is a very intimate process, all right? I too, in the past, had the privilege of being assigned a coach. And it took a lot of time for us to actually get to a level whereby I was able to then, as a coachee, to tell from a very honest perspective and the challenges and issues that I was a coachee was going through. If you put, and I say this because I always view that, you know, as be it coaching for a junior or middle level manager to an executive coach, it is going to be very different. You're not going to get the best out of a coach if you put it into as part of an L&D process itself, right? There's a need for chemistry to happen, and you cannot put, like, you know, a participant, be it in a small group of 10 or 15 people, or even for that matter, 5% with one coach in the classroom environment and treat it like any L&D perspective. You know, the earlier that L&D practitioners out there divorce these two elements of L&D and what's the purpose of a coach, I think you will then be able to reap the benefits on a greater scale of engaging a coach on a one-to-one basis. All right, it can never be part of L&D function, and that's my personal point of view. You know, but I'm happy to hear from others as well. Yeah.
Leonard, would you like to answer this one?
Jim, can I just
Yes.
step in a bit? I mean,
Sure,
there's
please.
a couple of questions that are really burning on people's minds. One
Throw 'em
of
in there,
which
please.
is, given that we're all from ICF, you know, how important is credentials and accreditations for organizations during this time? And I think what I'd like to hear from the panel is also, you know, how did you choose coaches before COVID and now after COVID? Is there a difference? I think it's very important for some of us to understand that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll take that one. Definitely, yes. One of the first things, because I can talk about that in terms of people approach me to ask for recommendations for coaches, right? They do that all the time, and because I belong to that function called talent, and one of the first things I look out for is, you know, I need to be able to sell the coach, right? And one of the first things I look out for is definitely credentials. Yeah, two things actually. Credentials are very important. Secondly is the number of years, the experience the person has in coaching. So these are the two things I look at as the fundamental thing before I even consider moving forward to propose somebody. Then, of course, there are other categories around what I look out for. And I think I can come back to that later because I'd like to leave the floor open to others as well who might want to chime in. Second question, Suman, about how is it different from pre-COVID and post-COVID? I think the jury is still out there because post-COVID hasn't quite happened yet. So what I can imagine is that the whole concept of, and I alluded to that earlier, if coaches can help these people navigate through the dislocations, how to manage teams that are no longer intact. And I don't mean only physically not intact. I also mean maybe some of them would have lost their colleagues through redundancies or whatever. how to create a new culture, because some of these managers have not gone through such tough crises. So if a coach can help some of these inexperienced managers navigate through these, I think the coach would be in high demand.
Alvin, your take on this?
My view is that accreditations and certifications are important, right? It shows that the coaches themselves have got some form of a framework itself. It's important as a leading organization, for any organizations for that matter, not only leading, and I think, it shows the professionalism that the coach themselves have gone through a part of their professional continuous development as well. So that's what I think the importance of having a accreditation and certification is necessary when you look out for a coach. Yeah.
Simon, you're someone who's hired lots of coaches in the past. What's your take on this?
Oh, hang on a minute. Obviously, accreditation is the first hurdle that you need to get over. I think that's highly important. But I also think that once you get past the accreditation piece, looking online and finding out a bit about this person, what's their views on certain subjects is also important as well. There's a lot of desk research that goes on. Your LinkedIn profile, your website, the blogs that you have. So as someone within the organization, I'd look at those data points as well. I do think the accreditation is just, that's the minimum standard that you need to have. There is a lot of other stuff that you need to think about when you're marketing yourself to the organization.
And I'd like to come back to this question on the role of coaching in L&D moving forward. Leonard, Alvin, you sort of suggested that coaching should be separate from L&D.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
So, and I say this reason being because it's like, I was with the regional banks itself, and I had an L&D budget. And at times itself, when we were facing various financials upheavals in the financial and banking world, the first area that the group CFO will always look at from a HR perspective is to reduce the L&D budget, right? And that is why I always say that, if you have this mindset that coaching and L&D is always together, and you form your budget at the start of the year together, whenever you want to do something or there's certain unexpected scenarios that come up in the business world itself, and your group CFO will say, let's go to the L&D budget and let's start cutting from there first, right? Then what happens, right? And we know that in uncertain times itself, right, the collaboration mindset, the ability to have a coach our senior leaders to bring out the best of their thinking, all right, be it opposing views if necessary, to bring out ideas, all right. Where then do an organization like us go find budgets for coaching interventions, whereby it's most needed at crucial checkpoints during businesses disruptions and stuff like that, right? So therefore, I always find and tell my L&D heads that, look, when you set the budget itself, please make sure that you treat coaching as somewhat beyond a classroom environment, right? Not just there, not beyond, go beyond the classroom environment. It must be treated as something very, very special, something that is much that we cannot do without that at certain points of time, right? So for example, if a coaching cycle goes for a coaching cycle goes for 18 months, all right, over 2 financial years, does it mean that we stop the coaching because there is a budget restraint or budget spent on that front? No, I think that the coaching must still go through itself, right?
I would really love
Jim, if I can jump in here.
Prasad's point on this, yeah.
Yeah, if I can just quickly jump in. So what Alvin was sharing is one view of an organization which could potentially focus more on the bottom line or the revenues. I have been lucky to work with organizations, be it Infosys, Google, or now GovTech, where the focus is on development. And then, because the focus is on development, we don't have to look at decoupling learning, learning and development is often used sporadically for training. So we don't have to kind of decouple that, between L&D and coaching. So the focus is overall in development. So irrespective of where it sits, it could be in the leadership development team of L&D, it could be in OD, because the primary focus of the organization is development. We don't see a difference between the two. In fact, I consider coaching as a significant part of the learning journey that we provide to individuals or leaders in the organization. So that's a different view to look at this question as well.
Leonard, Simon, would you like to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, I like to say that there is really a democratization of coaching these days, and that it is not only given at that high level. Everyone wants to have a coach. I mean, that's a good point, right? That's a good thing because it helps with the coaches that they have. So there is a lot of demand out there. I think that's a good point. That the only thing I say when it comes to budgets is all. For my organization, when it comes to coaching, we've got our own budget for L&D, but when it comes to budgets for coaching, it's usually a departmental budget. So they will come to me and then we are the ones who advise and give lists and stuff, but the budgets and all come really from the business. So they need to see a business need and see results so that to be convinced that a coach is useful for that business.
So if I was to summarize this, every organization is obviously different. Every organization has different perspectives on what coaching means to them. Every organization measures coaching and ROI in different ways. Some organizations value coaching more and more than others. Do you think that's a fair summary? No one size fits all?
You're right. It's fair to say that I would say a lot of organizations are in different maturity curves when it comes to how they see the value and importance of coaching. I would also think that if you take coaching seriously or development seriously, you will be a lot more flexible with your ROI. Some of them has a long-term ROI. You need to be patient and look at it as an investment and not look at it as something that can give you immediate short-term results. So the approach itself should shift. And I see that happening in a lot of organizations which are progressive and which has a development mindset at the core of their people practices.
Yeah,
I think that, Simon?
Yeah, I think it's driven by the corporate culture. I mean, if they in terms of supporting employees through this time, I do think it really comes down to the corporate culture. If they had a strong corporate culture about supporting employees beforehand, I think going through this, the realization that L&D coaching is that much more important. I think that that will be pushed up the prioritization list for a lot of companies because of the times that we're in. So I do think it will come down to the corporate culture as to whether they'll embrace coaching or not.
And if you had to, should companies use external coaches or build their own internal sort of coaching practice? I mean, what are the pros and cons? Simon, you start.
I think there's arguments for both. I mean, I know from the roles that I had in large organizations that actually having an external viewpoint was really, really needed. You do tend to, when you're working internally, you do tend to get caught up with things that probably aren't relevant, whereas an external coach coming in, I think is vitally important to have like an independent perspective on things. I think particularly at this time, you can get caught up in a whole bunch of things which aren't relevant, and I think an external viewpoint is incredibly valuable.
And I'll come back to you in a minute because I'd like to sort of get your take on what coaches should actually do to sort of, engage with organizations. But I'd like to sort of ask this question back to the rest of the group, Prasad, Simon, and Alvin and Leonard. what's your take on building an internal bench versus hiring external coaches?
Jim, this question is music to my ears because I can bring in my personal experience. I'm a product of internal coaching platforms. So I earned my stripes in the Google platforms that was made available, kind of grew in the ranks within the Google coaching platforms before I got on my coaching journey, got my PCC, eventually became an executive coach internally and an executive coach externally. In my view, there is space for both. And I think Simon alluded to that as well. I'm also a strong believer that a manager or a leader also needs to dual hat as a coach on a need basis. So that kind of goes into what I call the coaching culture in the organization. And I've been part of the journey where we've built coaching culture within the leadership team of large teams, functions. I've done that within Google. If currently working on that in GovTech. I've done that with my clients when I was running my own practice. So it's about helping managers and leaders pick up coaching skills and be able to wear that hat when they see an opportunity or a coaching moment pass by. They don't have to be full-time coaches, but they have a role as a coach as well. So if you want to build that learning or coaching culture, scaling coaching through internal coaches become extremely important. So I would look at it as a hybrid model where you bring in external coaches for leaders or on the need basis, that you use a large swath of internal coaches to coach or to scale coaching across the organization, and also to build coaching culture.
Leonard, your take on this one?
Okay, I think what typically happens is somebody comes to me and they'll ask, oh, I need a coach, right? And what I typically do is I ask, what do you want that coach to do? What's your objective? What are the metrics of success, and what do you want to do? And often what depends on what they say, then I'll say, okay, maybe what you need is actually not an external coach. Maybe what you need is an internal mentor. So for example, if the person wants to know more about the business itself, to gain some sponsorship and widening the business perspective, then it doesn't seem like an external coach kind of issue, right? But if the person is about, the object is a bit wider, like, leadership is a key area of development for me, and I'm thinking of going up the ladder. Now, those things, maybe I would say, okay, that could be something for the external. So it depends again on the objectives of the request coming in.
Okay, so Simon, I have a question for you. So in relation to how coaches should sort of engage with organizations, what's your take on this?
Well, I think the current environment that we're in, I think, it's an ideal time for coaches to reach out to organizations. I think I think what coaches should be doing is reaching out to their clients in these trying times and kind of have a kind of soft approach to more human sides of things, because I think people are needing support, and I think that this is the right time. Maybe it's a little early because I don't think COVID's necessarily played itself out, but I think in a short while when the lockdowns come off, I think that is a time for reaching out to organizations. And I think what is important is the coaches need to be able to articulate what it is they're going to do and the benefits they're going to drive for the organization, whether that be on the soft side, soft skills, but also, healthy organizations drive ROI as well. I think that being able to articulate that and being able to articulate what value coaches bring to organizations is very, very important. And I think that this is the right time to be doing it.
So we're hearing quite a lot of, when we read the chat, there's quite a lot of comments in the chat box about what sort of coaches should organizations hire? What sort of attributes should coaches have? Should the coach have walked in the shoes of the other person? So let me ask the panel, if you were to put together sort of a coaching bench for your organization, what would it look like, and why? Can I start with Prasad, please.
No, I've been following the chat, and there's discussion on differentiating, or the need to differentiate mentoring and coaching. The question treads in that direction, Jim. So I would say that coaches with familiarity of the industry or familiarity to the organization could be beneficial given certain times. But the ability of a coach, and going back to the previous conversation, to be versatile and to be able to bring in perspectives from different industries or different leaders that they've worked with. So some, call it learnability. So how can I pick an experience that I've had as a coach with a client and bring it to a conversation with another client? And that's going to be important. So while some familiarity with the industry could be beneficial, if you're looking at someone who's been there, done that, been in the role of the leader that they're coaching, I think it's better off to find strong mentors than to look at coaches. I think I would pick coaches for the skills that they bring as coaches, to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to kind of, listen, to understand, poke holes in the solutions, help co-create, show them the mirror. That's going to be important.
Leonard, your thoughts?
Yes, I think I would like to a bit echo what Prasad has said as well. Now, to be frank, right, when I select the list of coaches to present to a person who wants a coach rather. So what I do is I look at credentials. I mentioned earlier, I look at credentials, I look at coaching experience. And then after that, if the person has got related industry experience, now I put that person in as one of the 3 or 4 that I will shortlist, right? Now, why do I do that? Is because there is something called face validity, right? When there's we put in front of a client, the person says, oh, there is a sort of chemistry because of industry knowledge. However, that's not what I always do, because I also believe that the coach, sometimes you need to bring new kinds of perspectives. And this is where I talk about skills of the coach. Prasad mentioned it earlier. And so if, for example, if the coach has had experience in, let's say, change management, and the potential coachee needs that kind of experience. Now that sounds like a good fit, right? Even though the coach has never been in kind of in the same industry, it doesn't matter, because the coach would have had that kind of experience. So I would put that person as well as part of the list to be sent to the potential coachee.
Alvin, what would you like to add to this?
My view is that there's never going to be a right or wrong answer to this when looking out for a coach. All right. I think for me personally, if it's really for a senior leader in the organization itself, it's good to have some form of, it's always good to always go for an external coach. And the reason being is because it brings to the table a different point of view. All right. And I think the different point of view matters a lot. All right. Having a good understanding of the industry, yes. Having the ability to share chemistry between the coach and coachee is important. But more importantly, someone that is able to bring to life the ideas itself, and also to share diversity of views. I think that's important. All right. Yeah.
And how do you view external coaches versus internal coaches? What's your take on that?
For internal coaches itself, when I was the CHRO for regional bank itself, we embarked on this journey called humanizing the workforce. All right. And part of it was also to look at the institutional knowledge of the organization, and also the retirement, those that were in retirement age, and we wanted to still bring them back to the organization as part of this institutional knowledge, and we appoint them and we train them as mentors and coaches, right? And to be able to coach the younger workforce. So we developed the coaching culture from that perspective of building internal strength as well. But more so whereby it's for mid to senior leaders itself, that's where we felt that it's important to have that diverse views, all right? And we went against the grind to actually bring people or other coaches on board that did not come from the same flock, right, you would say. someone that has got different views, someone who's been there, done that in a different manner, someone with a little bit more of a technology background, all right, someone that did not operate in this geographical region and so forth. So these were some of the parameters that I remember, listing down and going out to engage the coaches for the senior leaders in the organization itself. Right. So yeah, at the end of the day, it boils down to what of the business objectives that you wanted to bring out. Number one, number two, of course, the ideas that could have been generated by engaging different people from the workforce itself. Right.
Brilliant answer. Leonard, your views on this?
Should we just do a quick check-in and see what we've got so far? So because there's so much going on and so many questions, so perhaps we can just take this time to quickly summarize what we are hearing, and then we can add on as we need, right? So one of the things I'm taking away is COVID. There is an opportunity despite COVID. In fact, for coaches who've gone through this and who are able to offer softer services for organizations and who've experienced with change management. So that's one big thing that coaches can look out for. And the other thing I heard also is credentials are important, and that's important for us here, but that's not the only thing that's important. What Simon said is it's the basic requirements, so experience, with what is needed for that leader, as well as the industry is also important. The third thing is I'm hearing that there's a place for both internal as well as external coaches, right? So there is a place, and each one of them can do different things for the organization. I'm also hearing when it comes to budgets, it's not so much about whether we have the money or not, but it's also about the coaching culture that the organizations are embracing. And if they're embracing, if they're focused on coaching as a culture and development, then absolutely there are opportunities there as well. And lastly, there was some discussion on coaching skills for managers, and that's another area that coaching can come into play during this time. So I'm just checking if there's anything else you heard that you like to kind of put it together for the rest of the group here. Yeah.
I think one of the common themes that comes out is that every organization is different. Every organization has a different view on coaching's role. Every organization requires different things from coaches. Every organization requires coaches to engage with them in a way that's appropriate for that organization. It's not one size fits all. As coaches, you need to be very, very versatile, and you need to be very strategic in the way in which you engage with different organizations. And this seems to be the common theme that's coming back. Prasad, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both Suman and you have summed up the conversation so far really well. I don't believe there's anything else to add from a summary point, Jim. Going back to, I want to share an example, a personal example about the industry that we're talking about, the relevance of the industry. And here's where a good coach can actually make a difference in bringing in learnings from different views. Again, keeping all the confidentiality in mind. I was coaching two people, different geographies, different industries, and somewhat similar, both family owned, and there is a father-son relationship in both the cases. On one end, I was coaching the father, on the other, I was coaching the son. It was fascinating to see similarities between how that was shaping up and bring my learnings or bring my observations from coaching a father in one end to be able to bring some perspectives to the son in the other, and vice versa. So, we've spoken about the role of the organization, budgets, learning, etc. For a moment, I wanted to bring back the focus on what is our role as a coach as well, which the organizations can benefit from. So it goes back to what we talk about, an HR function or a finance function. Are we transacting, or are we adding value? That's a question. And again, in sharing that small experience, I wanted to bring to fore or highlight the fact that whether coaching will be respected or not, whether it will be seen as value adding or not, whether it will be continued or not by individuals or organizations, is largely dependent on every one of us as coaches who would go out there and represent the community and the fraternity.
Thank
Brilliant.
you for that.
Thank you. We've got a great.
Sorry, Jim. I
Yeah.
have a great question from Tony. I think
Tony?
you're referring to
Good.
the same one,
Yes,
right?
go for it, please go.
So Tony, just looking at a question, Tony wants to hear from Simon on marketing and positioning, and how do we as coaches market and position ourselves? What tactics, and could you speak a little bit about that, Simon?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of perspectives on this, because you have yourself as the organization's ICF and how you position that. I saw something in the chat there that, yourselves as a profession, how do you position yourself in the marketplace? Then on the individual coaching level, it's kind of more, personal branding. And I think the way small companies are going to interact with organizations now is going to change drastically. It's the ability to network and get your name out there and swap business cards won't be there in the short and medium term. So I think every organization or every small company, and coaches specifically, you need to have a strong online presence. And I think articulating what it is that what benefits coaches can bring. I think a lot of the conversation we're having here is how do coaches interact with kind of like the L&D departments, etc. I do think there's a lot of pent-up demand that can, people, leaders, people in organizations, that coaches can kind of go bypass to a certain degree some of the internal workings of large organizations. There is huge demand from leaders, throughout the world now. They're making, leaders make thousands of decisions a day. In this environment, they're making them, they're far more critical decisions that people are making. So I do think there's a huge demand out there for coaches, and I do think that in any industry there is a habit that you start talking to each other, and you don't start looking at the people that are going to be taking on your services. So, I think a good place to start is where are your touch points online? What is your website up to date? Is your blog, talking about relevant subjects, about how coaching can help during this critical period? I did a bit of research before coming onto this, and you see the sheer benefits that coaching can bring to organizations. And I don't think that is commonplace. So I do think individually at a coaching level, make sure that all your online touch points are up to date. You've got a strong social media presence, etc. And that will help, I think, that will help when leaders want or reach out to their HR departments looking for coaching, that you're best placed to kind of leverage on that opportunity. And I do think there is a huge opportunity at the moment. I think that, budgets aside, and I do think it comes down to the corporate culture of the individual organization, but this could be a good opportunity, or should be a good opportunity for coaches to really make a difference, because the skill sets coaches have, for many people in organizations, it's well worthwhile. I mean, I think one of the other interesting thing is we're in this Zoom universe now that, is there, coaching is traditionally a one-to-one kind of interaction. I do think now with people embracing this top technology, there is an opportunity for coaches to reach out to the more middle management, to actually reach out a little bit more and do more good for organizations. So I do think there's opportunity there. It's just, I think we've got to make sure that all our online assets are there, and we talk about the benefits of coaching. And I think the opportunities are huge.
So there's actually a second part to this question, which is, and this is directed at the whole panel. what sort of marketing materials, tactics, have you seen in the past that have really gotten your attention?
Can I just add here? This
Sure.
is the it's probably less marketing, but more of a tactic, right? So what happens is that, of course, you put forward 4, 5 coaches or whatever to be selected, right? And the ones who invariably get selected in the end, I've noticed, right, are the ones who are able to clearly articulate a methodology during the chemistry session. Because what they typically put through is they've got to go through chemistry sessions, and the coaches want that. They want to meet the coach for the first time just to understand the coach better. And invariably, when I ask them, what's it? Why did you choose this person? Of course, the normal things like chemistry and all, yeah, we get that, right? But very often I hear something very similar amongst all the people who have chosen the coaches. They said, I was able to visualize how the coach was able to walk with me through this journey. And I said, please explain further. And they said, methodology, structure, and I agree, as coaches, we need to adapt, right? We all have to adapt as we go along. But at the very first instance, at that chemistry session, if the coach is able to articulate a structure, a pathway, like do, when, what, at which checkpoint we'll do some more feedback or whatever, it helps the person come up with a clear view of what the coach is able to do. And like it or not, corporate people are structured people, right? So I most of them anyway. So they visualize things in that manner. So that has shown to be one of the reasons why they choose the coaches that they did.
So if I was to sort of summarize this, it's being able to sort of, I suppose, visualize or show the client the journey you're going to take them on and how you're going to support them on that journey.
Yes, be very clear.
Can I just add to that? I do think it's important to go beyond that. Obviously there's the framework, and that's the how it's going to happen. That you need to be able to articulate, once you've gone through this, how am I going to benefit? And I do think that a lot of industries talk about what we're going to do, and don't talk about what's the benefit of doing that. So I do think, I'm not saying that you don't go through the framework, but you've got to articulate why it is that you have to go through that framework and what you're going to benefit out the back end of that.
So ROI.
Yeah, I mean, it can be ROI, but I think, some of the softer skills in terms of, managing people's stress levels, you're going to have, you're going to have senior leaders that are making better decisions for the benefit of the corporation. So I do think that there's ways and means of doing that, but ROI is obviously a key one, but you can also talk about the softer side of things as well.
But just saying, sorry, Jim.
Go ahead.
One question from me. Talking about ROI, I'm just wondering, how do we make coaching a boardroom conversation? Because right now, we're looking at HR level business leaders, but how do we make it, a discussion in the boardrooms? What are some things that we can do as coaches? That's number one. And number two is, what do you see as the future of coaching for all of us? So maybe it would be great to hear from all of you in the panel. Yeah.
I can go, Suman. Again, I go back to something that I mentioned earlier, which is about the culture of the organization, the mindset of the organization. Because Eric Schmidt, the former CEO and chairman of Google Alphabet, once famously said, every leader should have a coach, right? And he'd gone on record. And if you look at the Silicon Valley companies, and then go back to the legendary $1 trillion coach Bill Campbell, he was just not in the boardroom conversation; he was on the board, right, of a lot of companies. So I think it's really about continuing to educate, and that's also coming up on the chat. It's continuing to educate what the value is that coaching can bring to the leaders and to the organization. In some places, it's going to be easy. Some places, again, if the mindset is about revenue, costs, immediate ROI, etc., the journey is going to be a little harder. at using examples of what coaching has done. I mean, that's how the awareness and the evangelization happens. Don't lose heart, and just we need to do our bit to continue educating organizations where they haven't bought in completely. And sometimes it takes that one leader who may have even tried coaching in his personal capacity to go back and become an ambassador. So how do we become our own ambassadors, and how do we create ambassadors to go out there and, if I were to, for the lack of a better word, evangelize, sell, market coaching?
So we've got a great question here, which sort of follows on from that. What needs to happen, for every leader in Singapore to have a coach? What needs to change? Leonard, Simon.
I think you need to be able to articulate what value you bring. I mean, I think at the moment, in some organizations, they embrace it, others do not. But I do think that it's not just the domain of coaching, but articulating what value you bring. It's very, very, to me, that's quite simple. If you can articulate that and succinctly, I think that is an achievable goal potentially.
Leonard?
I think intrinsically people do know that they need support, right? They call it a coach, they call it a mentor, they call it whatever, right? Every leader intrinsically believes that he or she needs someone, right? Now, whether the question here, of course, is whether they will go purposefully outside to engage one. I think that's the key. And Simon alluded to the fact that the value. So what I've noticed is coaching is very infectious. Once a leader in the organization has gone through coaching and it's been a success, word gets around. And invariably, and sometimes not very healthily, the same coach gets passed around many different people. And I'm not necessarily a fan of that, to be really, really honest, right? But that success, that value has to be trumpeted. And this is where HR functions like mine, we sort of help in that regard, right? Because you need internal sponsors to come and push that kind of agenda and that kind of publicity. Yeah.
Alvin, I would love to hear your thought on this from the SHRI's perspective.
Before I go into that question, I just want to maybe share a little bit on the earlier question about how do organizations or how do coaches should market themselves. Perhaps I come from the selection standpoint itself, right? Other than all what was mentioned about certifications and everything, I think the importance is to have a dose of humility and honesty in selection of coach. And coming back to what Prasad said about the journey itself, I've in the past received countless of proposals from various coaching companies and organizations detailing out the number of times and of this coaching journey itself. And if it's a journey, then why list down the number of times of engagements and how much is it per session? Right. So I think that's how what I think my personal point of view, my humble opinion is that maybe that's something that the industry would like to do without. All right, since it's a journey, and I fully subscribe to the journey landscape itself. Right. So and you come to a selector with a proposal like 5 times of coaches, 5 times or 5 sessions equals this how much, 10 sessions equals this how much. I think that's a wrong mindset already on that front. Now, from an SHRI perspective itself, how then do we actually enhance coaching in the boardroom itself? It's never going to be an easy task, all right, unless the mindset of the leaders needs to be there and attune and find that in the past, from their own historical experiences, that they have been engaged with a good, very outstanding coach, that they have excel in their own business environment. Versus a board member who has had a bad experience in the past. I think this is going to change the dynamics of the coaching landscape altogether itself. I've attended board meetings in the past, and I've seen diverse views when we present our HR budget, and they always question the necessary and necessity to get a external coach itself. So, again, I wish I could give you a good firm answer itself, but it really depends on the decision maker, his history in terms of having a coach in the past. So the importance of grooming future leaders to get a coach that puts forth a positive journey for him or her. I think that's the first starting point, right? Before they actually become board members, and if they have a past experience that is negative, I don't think it's going to be an easy sell on that front.
Thank you, Alvin. I have one more popping up, Jim, may I?
Yep,
which I think is so relevant for us here in ICF. So the question is, what is your ask of ICF as an organization that serves the coaching community to help coaches gain perspective, language, and approaches when working with corporates? How do you think ICF can help us coaches accelerate our entry into organizations? And also be impactful when doing so. So I'm just, this question is for you, all of you buyers of coaching. How would you answer this question? What would you like ICF to do for our coaches? And I'd like to hear from the panel, all of you. Leonard.
Honestly, when I'm asked to find coaches, right, there are people I sometimes go to because I know them, right? I know they've got a track record with me in my past experience. But I also go into the ICF website because there's a treasure trove of information for all the accredited coaches there, right? And that's a ready depository of coaches that I look at. So I in terms of what else ICF can do is maybe to I think the idea is to promote the whole idea of coaching as an important leadership function to in Singapore. I think that's so that it makes my job easier, right? When I want to promote coaching, it makes my job so much easier. So from that angle, I think what I'm doing is I'm already tapping on the resources of ICF through the contacts that I know in the organization.
Thank you. Any more perspectives?
Someone, if I can add to it,
Yes,
as a credentialed coach myself, and having gone through the drills, I know ICF stands for the gold standard of professionalism in coaching. Right? You look at ACC, 125 hours of coach training plus 150 hours of coaching. I mean, that's serious stuff for 125 plus 500 for PCC and what have you. So I think the role of ICF in actually continuing to build around coaching as a profession is going to be paramount, in my opinion. I think that will continue to be a key role. The second one, building on that, is the evangelizing that I was talking about. While individuals will have a role to play, be it coaches or people who have been coachees who can be ambassadors, ICF wearing the hat of an institution, coming together to evangelize. How do you provide a megaphone for a profession of coaching? I think that's key. So those are the two huge responsibilities that I see for ICF.
Thank you.
Leonard, Simon, would you like to wrap up with an answer to this question?
Just sat here. I was kind of curious as to the ICF website. There needs to be a little bit more articulation about what ICF does and what value it brings. I think at the moment it's kind of an organization for coaches, whereas potentially you could look at it a little bit more from the corporate perspective and articulate what value you bring on there. Because at the moment it's kind of, I think perhaps that's an opportunity that you can help the coaches by articulating what it is that ICF does and what coaching more broadly brings to organizations. And that's that I would assume would bring great value to the individual coaches.
Thank you. Leonard?
I think I've articulated that already. So maybe I think it's going to be Alvin who want to comment.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. My view is that couple of years ago, I read this book called How to Grow a One-Ton Pumpkin. All right, and it boils down to collaboration. I think from ICF perspective, it's hard enough for a CHRO who firmly believes in the coaching culture to be drumming within their own organization itself. I think ICF as an international platform should also be drumming out to the business leaders, the key decision makers beyond the CHRO mandate, for even to up to the board levels, as what we discussed earlier on, to be drumming the importance of coaching as a culture in the organization. And I think it's important to collaborate then with other like-minded associations and bodies as well to promote the coaching culture among organizations and to the workforce itself.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, we're coming to the end of our session, so I'd firstly like to put my hands together for all the panelists. Thank you very much. And I'd like to sort of just share with you sort of roughly what's been covered in this sort of hour and a half. And here's what we're hearing. There's kind of three streams. On one hand, there's the stream that says every organization is different. Every organization has its own unique needs. Every organization views coaching in a different perspective. Every organization, uses coaching in different ways. And as coaches, our job's to really try and engage with those organizations in the appropriate way for them. So there's one aspect. There's two, there's the issue of the industry as a whole and the coaching profession. We need to be our best. We need to sing one voice. We need to communicate the right sort of messages to the industry as a whole, and to really be advocates for coaching and having coaching embodied in organizations. And thirdly, there's an individual stream, which is, as coaches, we need to be the best we can be. We need to continue to improve. We need to communicate our messages in the right way. We need to be able to not only just position value, but we need to be able to deliver on that value and be able to articulate it in the right sort of way. And they're sort of the key messages. If there's one last takeaway comment from all of the panelists, what would it be? Prasad.
I'll probably go back to something we started with, which is the current situation that we're all in. We would often say at Google that it takes a village to get anything done. I mean, I don't believe the days of individual heroism is probably gone, done and dusted. So it is a team that come together. So I think as we kind of get into some of these uncharted territories, starting to answer some of the questions, the role of the coach is very prominent. I mean, it could be an internal coach, external coach, or just wearing a hat of a coach in the conversations. So we're all in together, and we will get through it together. So that's my part in short.
Thank you. Alvin.
My parting words, I think, resilience is important, regardless if it's COVID-19 or beyond. All right, it's going to be a tough outlook for 2020. So don't give up. I think there will be pockets of opportunities for everybody. All right. So keyword there is resilience for me. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you. Leonard.
I would say as be relevant as a coach. The word relevant, right? Please understand the pressures of companies, of businesses in the post-COVID world, or even now, where cost pressures as well as skills pressures will come into play. So I believe more people would need coaches, even if they don't know it. Even if they don't know it, so there are opportunities, right? The thing is, how can coaches be flexible with approach, as well as looking with an eye as well on the business pressures in terms of cost?
Very good point. Brilliant. Simon, lastly, to wrap up.
Well, I think everyone needs a coach in normal times, but especially now. And I think the opportunity is there, and hopefully organizations see the value in what you guys bring to organizations and people individually, because I think people need it more now than ever. So keep up the good work and good luck.
Thank you very much. Once again, can I have everyone put their hands together for our panelists? Thank you very much. Lynn, wrapping up, what's needed?
Thank you, Jim, and thank you all the panelists. We're really happy that all of you have come. We've learned so much, and I think I can conclude with one line, which is really about every leader needing a coach. And if you have to choose one, choose the ICF credential one, which is our tag. And having learned from all of you, I'm sure we'll have lots more to do. But so for the rest of you who are staying back, I'm trying to see my slides, guys. Can you put my slides back on?
Hold on, I'm coming on with the slides, Suman. But before that, would you want to talk about what outreach does right now?
Yeah, so actually one of the things that we have started since last year is an outreach program, which basically goes out to educate organizations on what is coaching, what is the value, what is the benefit, exactly what Simon and some of you were saying. And we're willing to take this up to the senior ranks as well as the boardroom. So if any of you need a hand in convincing your decision makers internally, we're happy to bring a team there and really share with you what are the real benefits of coaching and even give you a sense of an experience of coaching. So we've got that package ready. And, you know, it's a big call out to all of you who would like to engage us to do it, because we are neutral and we can talk about the benefits of coaching without specifically, you know, talking about specific coaches. Yeah. So looking forward to hearing from some of you there. Okay, so as we're going to end, we're going to have the breakout soon. I just want to quickly thank our platinum sponsor one more time, and our silver sponsors. Can you move the slide here? Who are, you know, the three silver sponsors: the coaching apps, Starting Point, and the Coach Partnership. And before you go, I just want to, you know, tomorrow's the last day, so we're going to have a big celebration. We'd like you to come for the celebration after the sessions, which end at 8 o'clock. So come wear blue and yellow, which are the ICF colors. So we look forward, and please bring a glass of wine or a drink so that we can all enjoy after this, you know, week of learning and enriching experiences, right? So looking forward. So the last thing I have for you is the CCEU. So don't go away without scanning this QR code. You can get your CCEUs if you scan the code, and I believe the team has also put the link in the chat. So, you know, take a couple of minutes, fill in your CCEUs and the survey on this session, and we look forward to seeing you again this evening. We have one webinar coming up, which is about life in the new normal and will it be better for you. So look forward to seeing all of you back at 6:30. So thank you very much.
Suman, can we take a group photo with the panelists?
Oh, yes, I forgot. Let's do a group photo with the panelists. So
if you'd like to be in the photo, please take your video off, and we would do what we've been doing the last couple of days. So use your fingers to form an I, a C, or a W. And I'm gonna be doing the snaps. Okay, ready everybody? Hold it up in there. And we're going, yeah, okay, hold it. Okay. Okay, blazing through. Keep going, guys. Okay, we're good. All right, thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, let me put the QR code back on so that all of you can use it. So for the evening session, the invite remains the same. We're going to open up the session for free. So if you have any a coach friend that you'd like to invite, please feel free to pass them on the Zoom registration link.
Hi, Lynn, can you post the link on the chat, please? Thank you.
All right. Let me see. Okay, I think it's in already. Okay, so the rest of you, if you're staying back, I'm gonna open up the breakout rooms in a while. Now, your breakout room button is at the bottom on your Zoom menu. So you can click on that button to either receive the invite, or if you are asked to rejoin a room, because sometimes the rooms are empty, you just navigate down to that button. Okay, I'm opening up the rooms and go.